Appreciate that, Cornbread. Welcome. Glad you became a member. All right. Let's see here. This one got a lot of argument on my Facebook page. You can find it on blackenterprise.com. The title is "Just Do It." Nike invests $500,000 in Black women through Black Girl Ventures. The company recently announced a $500,000 investment to Black Girl Ventures, an organization committed to funding and scaling tech-based businesses founded by Black and brown women entrepreneurs. Nike's funding will help us grow our reach through new chapter development, increasing our technology infrastructure to better serve Black and brown leaders through our proprietary crowdfunding platform, and increase our brand visibility through storytelling campaigns curated by Black and brown women, says Shelley Bell, founder and CEO of Black Girl Ventures, in a statement released Tuesday. Founded in 2016, Black Girl Ventures started with crowdfunded pitch competitions. To date, the organization has funded 76 women of color. They've also hosted over 25 Black Girl Ventures pitch programs. Black Girl Ventures continues to be a valuable resource by providing corporate mentoring programs, supplier diversity initiative, change agent program, and online community to help more women gain access to capital and community building opportunities. Keep that in mind, right? To help women gain access to capital and community building opportunities. Nike's focus on economic advancement through entrepreneurship can be a game changer for Black and brown communities. According to the 2019 State of Women-Owned Businesses report, African American women made an average of $24,000 in annual revenue. Unfortunately, this presents the lowest numbers for any demographic of women. In comparison, all women-owned businesses reported annual revenue numbers of $142,900. This isn't the end of Nike's commitment to Black entrepreneurs. The company announced it would be sharing additional plans in the upcoming weeks. Nike is ready to help close the opportunity gap that exists for Black Americans. Now, I don't have a problem with Black Girl Ventures. I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be financed. But since the onset of the pandemic, one of the things that I have been vocally adamant about is the lack of support for Black male entrepreneurs. In the last year here on the Onyx Report, what we've talked about, one of the questions I've consistently asked is how many of you have seen targeted programming looking to finance Black male entrepreneurs? We've seen such financing in regard to extended on the base of race, gender, and being Black and female. I've seen grants extended to Black women photographers, drummers, it's media producers. It is what it is. How many of you have seen any for Black men? Anything? This is the demographic that is overrepresented in incarceration, at least since the late 1970s. All right. Coming out of prison, often unable to find traditional forms of employment. Hell, often unable to get housing. Thank you for that, Mo. B-Mo, appreciate the support. All right. Unable to find housing even. Black men with vouchers are often unable to actually be able to secure housing simply because they are Black men. And yet we all accept this as a given, right? We don't think much of it. But we allow for this to exist, and we basically, and this is something that men will say themselves, we just have to muscle up. You know what I mean? We just have to make it happen. And that's we've been kicking that rhetoric from, because it's all we have. So I get it. Iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean? We got to strengthen and motivate each other. Sometimes that comes in the form of chiding. Sometimes it comes in the form of, particular types of masculine performances that suggest that we're not vulnerable. We don't need institutional support. The irony is one of the various figures that often inspire us as entrepreneurs, or even just, Black men participating in this system. We're inspired by key individuals who are extremely well off, right? And many of those individuals actually were able to benefit from some type of structural support, inheritance, access to capital, government, policies being adjusted in their favor. So the irony is we are inspired by elite figures. Sometimes, and many a time, they're not even black, right? Who've been able to achieve because of support structures we don't see, while telling each other that we need to ignore the fact that we don't have them and just push on, which is what it is. But when we start to see something extended during the pandemic, it is not extended to you. How do you reconcile that? I've had black men write into the Onyx Report and tell me that they had to apply for support through a sister or a cousin, or some people have even had to hire women just to be the face of their programs so they can get basic access to the same kind of capital that others are getting in this economy, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And yet, nobody has a problem with it. So when I posted this on Facebook, one of the things I was saying is, of all places, right, that should be looking to support black men, I would think that Nike, who has profited off of black men in particular for decades now, should be the first. What I was told was by a couple of brothers who wrote in that because Nike hires black men and has millionaire celebrity endorsers, hawking their shoes, that is the equivalent. And we should be quiet because they more than support enough black men. I would say they more than use enough black men. But more than that, I don't equate millionaire celebrity, endorsements as the same thing as supporting small business or small level entrepreneurs in the midst of a pandemic. I don't equate the two. And I haven't yet seen anyone invest directly in black men, and I want to. But I'm more than incensed at how often nobody says anything about it. Nobody. I was told that, instances such as these are good for the community and that I should be quiet and just support the community. But what happens when the community itself, including black men, don't support black men? What happens when we accept the fact or the idea that black men shouldn't get support? Because they don't need it, right? Because they have an advantage in terms of, I can't think what the advantage is, but you tell me. What's the advantage? What do black men get that others don't, that necessitates them not receiving philanthropic or government support, government-based support, especially in regard to small business? We already know over 90% of black businesses have one employee. 99% of black women's businesses have one employee, right? But none of us have capital. And yet black men have an experience with being overrepresented in terms of incarceration, and that tends to have a lifelong impact in terms of what you're able to do, how you're able to move in society, getting an education, right? Getting a bank loan. Seeing a lot of brothers coming out of the pen getting that. So we have small scale entrepreneurship where people are depending on whatever means they have to support themselves. And you consider the high rates of unemployment, sometimes over 40 and 50% for black men in certain urban areas, right? When you consider all of those factors pre-COVID, does that mean black men suddenly and magically don't need any support? And why is it that nobody's saying anything about it? This is the kind of thing that incenses me, and it makes it hard for me to appreciate what I was told about being quiet and just celebrating the women. See, the argument is that if I critique that this one-way advantage is a problem, that I must hate women. I understand that these are structural. This strategy is not arbitrary. It's not accidental. And it's not necessarily something, I'm not arguing that women are going out here and making this occur in this way, right? But I will say, I ain't heard no complaints from the most educated demographic in the country, let alone the most educated demographic in the black community. I have heard no complaints about the bifurcated treatment of capital being extended on grounds of entrepreneurship. I've heard nothing. Nothing. But more than that, at the end of the day, this is larger than entrepreneurship or the extending of capital. This has to do with the treatment of black males over the decades. Appreciate that, Rashid, right? This has to do with the treatment of black males going on multi-generationally, right? And we've come to accept it as a norm. It's just kind of a given, right? And this goes to what we've been saying for the longest. When you talk about black men, and you talk about the idea that black men themselves are raised with the notion that they are lesser beings, but even lesser beings than their women. And when our women are raised to believe that they are fundamentally better beings than their own men, this is an acceptable form of treatment. Now, I know that sounds like hyperbole, right? It can't be that way because people don't directly use that language. But I grew up in an era where niggas ain't shit and all of that, where it was common parlance, right? It was common. It was commonly heard. Now you factor in that, what? Is it nearly 80%? Black children raised in single parent households that are majority female. Only about 2 to 4% are male led households. Then you factor in that over 90% of the teachers from K through 12 are female. And if you go through college and grad school, the numbers don't vary. It's still predominantly female. What I'm saying to you is the way many black families, the way children are socialized, they're socialized primarily by women from birth. If you go, Barry, appreciate that. If you go from birth through, let's say, grad school, if you got somebody that went straight through like I did, yeah, you're socialized mainly by women from birth all the way to you complete grad school. And so the idea that black men are lesser, it's easy to perpetuate that in a structure where men have very little say over what children are able to internalize. Their very participation in the family, especially post-divorce, is often negotiated by her and her proxy capacity to leave him at an arm's length distance using the courts. That's a lot of power. And it brings us to a moment where boys especially are often told what manhood is based on what women tell him about it. And often what I found, especially as a child, what you tend to get, especially from mothers, you don't really get an idea of manhood per se. You get an idea of what type of man she wants. And so as a young man, you try to become that. You try to emulate it. You don't know how the inner workings of it go. You just kind of learn the outside performance of it. Anyway, my point simply being, when we really get down to it, we have to be able to shift the way black men are seen. And if it doesn't happen from within the community, as one could argue it already is, will be in peril. And I don't care whether you're talking about the family as an institution, or whether you're talking about organizations. I don't care what entity you're talking about. If we do not deal with the intense and low boiling contempt for black men and the ongoing misandry for black men within the community itself, nothing will work. I don't care if you're a staunch conservative or a hardcore Pan-Africanist, it will all fall apart. Shout out Cornbread, appreciate the support again. It will all fall apart. I don't care what your philosophy, I don't care what your organization is. If you do not deal with this particularly radical, bent of feminism that's so widely accepted that we don't even use a name to refer to it as, if we don't deal with this kind of misandry and low boiling contempt, because I'm gonna tell you, with the younger generations, there's already a shift. When I look at the boys, I'm telling you, it's already a shift. The contempt they are already familiar with. And when I talk to the young boys that I'm whether you're talking my son's age or in college, when I have conversations with them, they are already resolved about things, and in the next 30 years are not going to be pretty unless there is a serious mass shift in the community, most particularly, to reassess its treatment of black men and boys. But that's just me. Y'all tell me if I'm tripping. You can dismiss what I'm saying, right? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, after all, it's just another black male talking. You don't have to listen to him. Anyway, this is what we're dealing with. So we're going to take a quick little break because I would like for you to support a couple of things. So let's start with the first one in honor of my brother Green Gorilla. If you haven't checked out the Green Gorilla channel, make sure you do so. He is on the push to create a documentary that will expose a lot of this and at least give you an understanding of why black men of all people are as frustrated as they are. And it isn't getting movie treatment. It isn't getting media treatment for the most part. Most people don't know until you run into it. So let's check out what my brother Green Gorilla is trying to do.